Hello guys and welcome back to another little review of Warcry. So today we're going to take a look at the Sylvaneth and the Idoneth. Two of the few remaining Order factions. I think after that we've only got Daughters of Cain left, so let's get right into it, shall we? Let's start off with the Kurnoth Hunters. So there's 6 different types of Kurnoth Hunters, basically 3 basic types: the archer, the scythe, and the sword, and then a boss variation for each of them. Just to say this in advance, the boss is always just adding 1 extra attack and a couple of extra wounds, but also they cost more points. Anyways, let's have a look at the Kurnoth Archer boss. He has 3 attacks in range, which only results in 4.5 damage on average. So he's like the lowest damage per point value in the entire warband. However, being the only ranged option, the Kurnoth Hunters with bows are to be expected to be the lowest damage per point value. So ranged characters are very often in this kind of red tier of the 0.02 damage per point value. So it's not unexpected, but I still don't think they are great, and I don't know that you necessarily need the range damage with Kurnoth, with Sylvaneth in general, because they have good mobility and so on. So I don't know. I've seen people use the Kurnoth Hunter boss, but I don't think you need to. Anyways, very good survivability, good point value there, so that's all fine. Then we've got the standard Kurnoth Archer, only 3 damage because he only has 2 attacks, which honestly for a model of that point cost is just not great at all. I think, to be very honest, I would drop the Kurnoth Archer altogether. If you want any ranged, go for the Archer boss. Otherwise, just ignore these 2. Then we've got the Kurnoth Hunter with Scythe and the Kurnoth Hunter with Sword. The Scythe does a bit more damage, but they are very equal in general. Sorry, the Scythe boss does more than the Sword guy boss does. But the normal guy with Scythe and the normal guy with Sword, they do the same amount of damage. Therefore, you might as well bring the Sword because it's cheaper. However, you've got the 1-inch extra range on the Scythe, so that's the one thing you could consider there. If you really want to keep outside of that opponent's range, maybe the Scythe might be a bit better. In general though, both of these fighters are very good. Both the Sword and the Scythe variant do a lot of damage, and I think they are very good models, just in general. Obviously quite expensive, so I wouldn't bring too many of them. I think bringing 2 Kurnoth Hunters maybe is the most I'd do for Sylvaneth, which is also due to the fact that they've got a lot of good cheap models as well. Which brings us to the Spite-Revenant, who might just be my favorite model in the entire warband. As you can see, the Spite-Revenant boss does 6.7 damage per action. That's just incredible value for his points. He is a bit squishy, only 2 activations to kill him. It's still on the average in terms of point value because he's just a lot cheaper, but being low toughness and so on, he's squishy, that's for sure. However, the Spite-Revenants all have a net ability, so basically making it impossible for opponents to move, which in my opinion, I've talked about it in the past, it's just very, very strong. That alone can win you games. So bringing a couple of Spite-Revenants, in my opinion, quite good, and I think the Spite-Revenant boss might be one of the best boss choices here. The normal Spite-Revenant, the damage is a bit lower, although they do have a lot of attacks, which is very nice. And as you can see, again, for their low points value, I think they are... Is it 70 points? It might be 70 points. For 70 points, 3.4 damage is very high. You can see that's higher than what the Kurnoth Archer does. So really, really good value there. although they are incredibly squishy. So one activation out of most decent fighters will take them out. So you've got to be very careful how you use them. Don't run up to combats you can't win. That's going to lose you Spite-Revenants quite quickly. But if you could, if you can get in there once the opponent has already activated, yeah, go for it. That's a lot of damage. Anyways, then we've got the Tree-Revenants. And what's interesting is that the normal Tree-Revenant, he's the cheapest model on the roster for only 50 points. There aren't even many models in Warcry in general that are that cheap, so I like that a lot. His damage output is a lot lower than that of the Spite-Revenant, but again, for the points he costs, that is still very good. And he also only needs one activation to be killed, obviously, but he has a triple ability that allows him to teleport across the battlefield, so you can set him up anywhere on the battlefield 5 inches away from enemy fighters. So if you're playing objective games or trying to run away from an opponent because he has to kill them or something, this ability can be very, very good. Same goes for the Tree-Revenant boss. 4.1 damage, nothing to sneeze at, nothing great for the points value. He's only in the medium tier. Bit more survivable, just like the Spite-Revenant boss, but honestly I think the Spite-Revenant boss is a bit better than the Tree-Revenant boss is, especially since both of their abilities are very good anyways. Then we've got the Dryads. The Dryads have 2 points of health more than the Revenants do, and they've also got 1 point of toughness more, I think. I think they are toughness 4, though I might be wrong with that. Don't quote me on that. But I'm sure about the 2 damage points. The Dryad boss does pretty good damage. 5.4 damage is nice. That's high. Yeah, both of them do decent damage for their points. Not quite as high as the Spite-Revenants, but again, that's fine, especially considering they are more durable as well. So if you want to go, well, I think what's interesting about Sylvaneth is they offer you a lot of options. You can go very elite, you can go 3 Kurnoth hunters and then add a couple of smaller models, for example. You could also just go swarm. There's no issue bringing like 15 smaller models here, which might be quite good as well. So that's a list I've thought about, maybe bringing a couple of Dryads, because the more you have of those, the more they benefit from the ability they can use, the triple, which gives them all an extra attack against a specific opponent. That could be nice. Then, as I said, they are a bit more survivable, so they could be like the meat of your army. Getting 1 or 2 Tree-Revenants just because the teleporting is nice, but it being on a triple means you won't be able to pull it off all the time. So yeah, having 1 or 2 of those is probably enough. And then I'd probably go for the Spite-Revenant boss and maybe 2 more Spite-Revenants. Having 1 in each battle group could be quite strong to get that nice damage output and to get that net ability, which allows you to just hold very good fighters of the opponent in place, which is, as I've said, it's brilliant. So yeah, that's it for the Sylvaneth, really. I think we shall move on to the Idoneth. So moving from the woods to the sea, we start off with a couple of fish right away, which are the Akhelian Guard and the Morsa Guard. The Akhelian Guard and Akhelian Prince are the more defensive option, basically, of the bunch, and the Morsa Prince and Morsa Guard are the more offensive option. At least that's what they are supposed to be. Now, as you can see, the Akhelian Guard deals 4.1 damage on average per activation, which is not good. Let's be very real, all of these 4 guys, they deal pretty horrible damage considering their point cost. That's due to the fact that they do fly, they do move 10 inches, so these things always come into account when looking at points value and at points cost. But yeah, you are not going to get a lot of burst damage out of any of these fighters. Now the Morsa Guard, they have a quad ability that lets you deal damage to opponents, I think surrounding you within 3 inches. So you could get a damage spike out of them that way. But I think their standard attacks are just very mediocre. 3.1 damage is pretty horrible. So I don't know, I don't like the Morsa Guard at all really. Especially considering that the Akhelian Guard have one of the best defensive abilities in the game. Now, many defensive abilities only buff your toughness, which in my opinion does very little, and it doesn't do anything against 6s, so the crits that enemies hit you with, which deal the most damage anyways. However, the Akhelian Guard and the Akhelian Prince, they have a triple which allows them to ignore crits. So basically, if they get hit by a critical attack, it just counts as a normal attack. So looking at fighters who do 2-4 or 1-4 damage, there's a lot of fighters that deal 1 base damage, 4 crit damage. They'll only be ever able to do 1 damage to them. And then the Akhelian Prince, he's rocking 35 wounds. It's very tough to take him down if he's ignoring crits. So that's where the real strength of these guys lies. They are survivable. They are very fast and they are survivable, which is a good combination. But yeah, don't expect to get massive damage out of these guys. And we've got the Reavers. The Namarti Reavers, they deal 1.4 damage at range. Not great, to be honest. It's 2 attacks, one strength 3, 1/3 damage, so they are just like goblin archers basically. They've got 15-inch range, which is quite good, but other than that, their damage isn't good. So at 75 points, these are a bit weird. However, something that can be said in their defense is that they've got a 6-inch move, which is pretty high. So yeah, that's nice, but really not the greatest ranged option out of all the warbands. Only take 1 activation to be killed as well, so they go down quickly. The Reaver Champion, he does more damage on range, he's more expensive as well. I don't know, only takes 2 activations to take him down as well. And I think with having the option of bringing the Akhelian Prince, who's pretty damn good, I would not go for the Reaver Champ. Well, and then you've got the Thralls. The Thralls do actually do quite a lot of damage because they've got a 2-4 damage profile, which for 80-point models is very rare. And they've got 4 attacks as well. Only issue is they are strength 3, so you'll normally be hitting on 5s and 6s. But still, 4.1 damage is brilliant, as you can see. Very, very good damage per point value. However, they are also easily taken down. So with these guys, it's really about getting in there with the flying tough models and soaking up the damage with them, and then dealing the damage with the Thralls. I think that's going to be your best bet, and you can't pick and choose as much as you can with the Sylvaneth. They are a bit more reliant on having all fighters in the warband. Oh, not all, but I think you'll need Thralls and you'll need one of the Akhelian guys basically. I'm sure there could be a point made for the Morsa Guard as well, just because they have 2-inch range, so that makes them in a way even more survivable, but I think that gets usually outweighed by the fact that the Akhelian Guard have the triple that makes them basically unkillable for a while. So yeah, That's my opinion on the Idoneth Deepkin. I've had a lot of games with them. I don't think they are the strongest of the warbands, but they are a fun one for sure, and they offer a lot of tactical flexibility, so I like these guys a lot. As I do the Sylvaneth though. I hope you guys enjoyed this little review, and hope to see you guys again in the next one.